Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, and it's big news out of the AAC. The University of Cincinnati has fired head coach John Brannen. News confirmed by our Gary Parrish and the university moments ago. Brannen was placed on administrative leave last week following an internal investigation into the Bearcats basketball program. Brannen spent 2 seasons in Cincinnati, leading the Bearcats to a share of the AAC regular season title last season. You could see the 2019-20 season, they went 20-10, but 2020-21, a little bit of a different story with the university going 12-11. And for more on this, let's now welcome in college basketball analyst Matt Norlander, one of the hosts of the college basketball Eye on College Basketball podcast with our Gary Parrish. Matt, I guess I'll just start by asking you, what happened here?
Well, listen, it's been a bumpy 2 years for John Brannen, no doubt about that. Had some issues with his roster from the get-go. The athletic director who hired him is now at USC. He's no longer the athletic director who fired him, and that is John Cunningham. I was told, I mean, geez, Jeremy, when I got to Indianapolis, which was 2 weeks ago to cover the NCAA tournament, I was told then that John Brannen and his AD were not on speaking terms, and that had been a thing for a while. This was an inevitability. Cincinnati was trying to fire Brannen with cause to not have to pay him. This was very ugly behind the scenes. In fact, I have another source, as we're talking right now, that even says that the athletic director, John Cunningham, he doesn't even have a good relationship with the football coach, Luke Fickell. So I'm not putting this all on Cunningham, but I am saying the reality of this job and that university right now is that AD has not put himself in an advantageous position with potential future candidates to take the head basketball coaching position here. So Brannen obviously had his own troubles there after getting that job, almost 2 years to the day, in fact, coming from Northern Kentucky. So it's all dissolved here. This is a meaningful job. It's a good job in college basketball, one of the 2 or 3 best in the American Athletic Conference. But no, Brannen will certainly open doors. And it's just a matter of who would take it at this point. I know we can talk candidates real quick here in a second. One name that you might see connected to it that's weird timing is Frank Martin at South Carolina. He had a standoff with the South Carolina administration for a little bit, then they redid his contract. They actually just announced that earlier in the day, so I wouldn't think that Frank Martin is going to be able to get out of that and get the Cincinnati job. But I'll never say never in college athletics because it has been a wild past couple of weeks in this sport.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that Cunningham wasn't getting along. They did release a statement. I just want to read some of it from some of it to you here, Matt. The decision to move in a new direction comes after a thorough review of the program, which included conversations with student athletes, coaches, and staff, as well as with Coach Brannen. Ultimately, the university is acting in the best interests of our student athletes and of the institution, and this decision is reflective of our commitment to both. And then it goes on to say that they will be looking to find a replacement as soon as possible, as soon as they can, and that Tim Morris will serve in an interim capacity as they conduct a nationwide search for a replacement for him. So you mentioned one name. I mean, are there any other names that come to mind as possible replacements here?
The biggest name you're going to see attached to this is Archie Miller, former Indiana coach who had success in the state at Dayton. Just before we went on the air here, I checked with one source about that, and certainly that could happen. But would Archie want to go into this spot given the environment there? Maybe. We'll see. Archie Miller actually has a lot of leverage here. I mean, he could sit out for a year. He got paid handsomely to leave Indiana, and he could wait and see if there might be a job that's a bit more enticing or appealing to him a year from now. Richie Riley out of South Alabama has ties to the Cincinnati area. Not a huge name, but he's one. Another Richie McKay out of Liberty. He's coached bigger programs before, and he's done a really good job there. He might be another name that I would attach to it, but it's still, it's weird. It's early with this. And yet at the same time, this has been maybe the worst kept secret in all of college basketball, Jeremy, for the past 2 to 3 weeks. Everyone knew that Cincinnati was going to open eventually. It was just a matter of how it got there. And if the AD was going to be able to fire Brannen for cause, clearly didn't. And this will be a lawyered up kind of situation here as Brannen will seek to get all of his money after just a disastrous 2-year run there in the Queen City.
Matt, when you look at the job like this, I mean, in terms of the attraction of a job like this, and obviously concern with the AD wanting to move and, find reasons to fire Brannen with cause so that they don't have to pay him, when you're a college coach on the outside looking in and possibly looking to move up, I mean, what's the appeal of a job like this when you have what appears to be, what looks like it's going to be, as you mentioned, there's probably going to be some lawyers involved in this, a sticky situation?
Sure, and not everything is on the AD. I want to be clear about that. John Brannen didn't do a good enough job. If he did, he would still be the head coach there, and he had some roster attrition issues. He had issues with some of the players as soon as he got to campus when he got the job 2 years ago. But it's a proud program. I mean, there is appeal. Don't get me wrong. Cincinnati is a program that's made Final Fours and been historically very, very good. In fact, I ranked every notable program less than a year ago for CBS Sports, and Cincinnati is one of the 20 best programs in the history of the sport. So it is a very, very good program there. It's just a matter of when you go in. What kind of environment are you walking into, and what kind of candidate can you bring in there? It will be interesting to see who they get. This should, by the way, knock on wood here, this is the 15th job, Jeremy, to open in what I dub as a Major 7 conference. So that's the Power 5 football conferences plus the Big East and then the American, which Cincinnati is in. This is the 15th one. It's one of the busiest coaching carousels among power conferences we've seen in college basketball in the past decade, and obviously an extreme swing to the other side after a year ago because of the pandemic. Only one opened, and that was Wake Forest. Now this is 15 we've seen change, and I think this will be the last one, but again, never say never.
Yeah, never say never, Matt. We've already had 15. So, I mean, when you look at that, when you look at this much movement, as you mentioned, historically, I mean, it's not like this. Is it a changing of the guard, or are there coaches that it's just their time? Like, do you attribute any particular reasoning as to why we're seeing so much movement among the coaching ranks in college basketball this year?
I mean, it's a combination of circumstances that lead to all this. Like, Lon Kruger retired because his son got a head coaching opportunity, and he lost one of his former assistants who tragically died as a head coach in the middle of the season. Like, Lon Kruger wasn't anticipating to retire in 2021, but those things happened, and he did. Roy Williams, he didn't think North Carolina wouldn't be not good enough to get into the second round of the NCAA tournament, but he said the program's not operating at a level where I think it should be. It's time for me to step away. So some of those coaches were a year or two ahead of schedule, and then other instances, like if Shaka Smart doesn't lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament, does he leave Texas? I don't really know about that. And if Lon Kruger never leaves Oklahoma, that job isn't open. So then where's Porter Moser right now? There's any number of factors there. Some of this was inevitable for sure. But if Texas never opens because Shaka Smart's successful, then Chris Beard never leaves Texas Tech anyway. So there is a real, this is the coaching carousel, Jeremy. This is the domino effect that you will sometimes see. And Cincinnati will lead to another one, because I do think it is a good enough job where it is going to pluck, I think, unless it's Archie Miller, I think it will pluck a sitting head coach from another school.
And somebody who's on top of all of it is you, Matt Norlander, our CBS Sports HQ college basketball analyst. Thanks very much for hopping on with us. So here's John Brannen, as mentioned, the University of Cincinnati, parting ways with Brannen this afternoon, a 32-21 record in 2 seasons. He replaced Mick Cronin, who himself just got an extension at UCLA, a 20-10 record in 2019-20, but then things went downhill, 12-11 in 2020-21. He had a number of players enter the transfer portal this year as well. As you heard Matt say, there were players issues with some of the players from the outset. Missed the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2010. And of course, Matt and Gary Parrish will be talking more about this on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. As Matt mentioned, it's been an incredible coaching carousel in college basketball this season. Download and follow the Eye on College Basketball podcast wherever you get your preferred audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.